Hello everybody, Lorenzo here, episode 36 of Eeloo and Tylo, and last episode I probably said some things about what was gonna happen, but hell if I know, I've forgot everything. The reason is that it's been more than a month since last episode, for which I do apologize. I actually watched the previous episode to find out what the hell I was up to, and I had lots of laughs about that horrible Ike landing that bounced a million times. That was funny. What happened is my girlfriend got in hospital, and she's back now and recovering nicely. Everything went fine, but that was a stressful few weeks, and I myself there was something up with me as well. Oh yeah, I had a holiday, um, but all in all, many reasons that precluded me from making videos. But here we are again with the newest addition in this series. And, well, I think the theme of today's episode will be finding out whatever the hell was going on in the first place. Looking at the alarm clock, we've got the probe Eeloo getting to Joule, which is, I don't know if that's interesting. We had probes arriving at Tylo a few episodes ago, and I have a design for a Tylo lander, which we could go ahead and simulate, even though simulating on Tylo is relatively expensive. Let's see, we have base landers for Eeloo and the moon. This is interesting. We can start building those at some point. The power lander. This is probably the lander, or this was it, the sim lander? That was probably, yeah, the sim lander is something that could be used to land on Tylo. Now, this I have simulated on a live stream a while ago, and it did in fact manage to land on Tylo, but this is rather heavy, so this would have to get into orbit of Tylo, which would require a relatively rather supermassive rocket. We will park this idea for the moment. Also, I seem to recall that there was a little bit of a problem with the wheels. They weren't in the right position. Anyway, we may revisit that if there is nothing more interesting to undertake, which I doubt. There's probably lots of interesting things to undertake. So let's have a look at the alarm clock here. Probe Eeloo is getting to Joule. Then we have a window to Eeloo. Base lander is already en route to Eeloo, so we could launch some crew to Eeloo. Although I seem to recall, now that I'm vocalizing these thoughts, that I had decided against that previously. How are we doing on crew? This is not the crew building. How are we doing on crew? We have quite a roster of available crews. However, we also have 7 tombstones, which we'd rather not add to. We'd have to build something with lots of life support. And speaking of that, of building and developing, we left the previous episode unlocking lots of these science nodes. I think it's time to look at these things. We have no vessels in construction or in storage, so that makes things easy. We have to build something before we can do something. We have some planes here. We have a space plane that's capable of low Kerbin orbit, and a rather pointless harvester that will, if required, get trace amounts of carbonite. Now, those carbonite and carborundorum mods have been somewhat underutilized, but I think they will come into full swing later when we have the technology to build fusion drive torch ships, which is incredibly exciting. Actually, that's the thought I started this whole series with, and I do sort of have to do some PR, I think, because just 30-40 viewers is not enough. I will get on that sometime before the end of days. KSC, no upgrades. Tech, oh look at that, lots of technology going down. 80 days. I think we have to burn 80 days somehow, because then we have lots of stuff. We have specialized construction, actuators, specialized control, and advanced electrics. Let's just have a peek at those things. We get this. This is better solar panels. That's really nice, because now we're always just plastering those well, the ones that are spot welded. We get this. We get probe fly-by-wires, advanced reaction wheels, some engines. This is not hugely exciting but useful. We get this. The grabbing unit, that means we can get the surprise back from orbit. That's a lot of episodes back. That's a derelict with some stuck crew. This was meant to be a spaceship, but that didn't really work out. Don't think we got this. Endpoint for building a strut from EVA. I'm gonna have to find out how all these mods work that I installed. What else did we get? We didn't get this. We didn't get this. We have nuclear drives now, that's good to not forget. Did we get this? Advanced Science Tech? I think we got this. The ISRU unit. Advanced Science Tech. Why do I forget everything the second after I speak it? Yes, we have that, but it will take a million years to get. Let's see if we can upgrade. We have some points. Let's put that in the science thing. Blam 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 blam. Kerblamo. Right, so ship construction will have to wait a bit. We have 380 grand. That of course doesn't matter for the stuff that's already in transit, but as you can see, that's actually not a huge amount. We are running out of missions that were launched previously. Which contracts do we have active? We need to make a crewed surveyor of the moon. Now, I think this is a prime candidate to utilize the nuclear engine. We'll have a one-man single ship with a nuke engine, and yeah, well, I'll design and build that. Extracting ore, for that we need the ISRU unit, and that's not available for a while, so this is on the long term. This is a really easy contract that we can just do whenever, and I haven't gotten around to it. And visual surveys of the moon, yeah, this is more stuff that we could use the nuke ship with. This will need to land at 2 different spots. Yeah, I'm gonna design the nuke ship that will be able to land and perform these visual surveys. I will do that off screen and report back with the results. See you then. Alright, there it is, and hopefully, if I've done my guesstimations right, this will mean, because of the nuclear power in the top stage, that it can be a relatively light and simple rocket costing only 70 grand. We will now run a simulation to figure out if that is at all accurate. And the thing we're worried about most here is 1. Will it get out of the atmosphere without disintegrating? 2. Are the heat radiators up to the task of radiating all the nuclear heat? And 3. Will Bill Kerbin survive? Obviously we will have to pick a pilot rather than a whatever he is. Also, I just remembered that I forgot to put any life support on this one. Life support status, there's lots of red letters here. Fortunately, with all the red letters here, it's all 0 crew. Leafy's capsule. What, Leaf's capsule still has a crew in it? I don't believe it. We'll have to get on that. She will be without food for 3.5 years then. As will be the surprise. We will not worry about these numbers too much. Come on, Windows, get out of here. I've called this craft the surprise. Come on, get out of here with your Windows. I called this craft the careful, not the surprise, because if we don't be careful, if we're not careful while jettisoning the nuclear things, it will blow up the ship. Also, I bought a Cytec X52 flight control system, which I will not use with this ship now because I've never used it for KSP before, but I will probably do a video on that if that works out to be nice. Look, I'm grabbing the throttle now, you can't see that, but pay attention to this throttle indicator. Look how smoothly I can control that. I have no idea if that's... yeah, I could probably do that with key presses, but this throttling thing feels really nice. Now I'm grabbing the joystick, look at that control input going all modular on the bottom left of the screen if you don't know where that is. I might be able to do some proper ship controlling with this, but for now I didn't do any configging, so I will be sticking to the keyboard controls that I know. Enough talking, blast off. Blast off. Blast off. I unbound the space key and now I have to press a key on the joystick, which is hidden under a fire thing, a plastic cover. This is nice to prevent accidental staging, but now I can't lift off. So here we go. No, here we don't go. I will have to open up the options menu, I think. Oh god, there's no controls here. Alright, that was a crash because I opened up the settings and I forgot that Fraps doesn't really like that when I do that in game. Anyway, I rebound the space key to the stage and we should be good to go. Here we go, in simulation. Alright, we're going up. Thrust to weight is about right. Wonder how that will hold up when these boosters are exhausted. The ship will then of course be lots and lots lighter and will have less air drag to contend with. But for now we were actually accelerating a little bit too fast. I don't want to break the sonic barrier, the sound barrier this low in the atmosphere, because max Q, which is the moment of... well, max Q depends on lots of things, but there is turbulence when you go from Mach like 0.999 to Mach 1.001. In other words, as you cross the sound threshold, this puts more strain on the craft than going at like Mach 2 from there. And if you put this point like really low where the air is very thick, your ship doesn't always hold up, like you can see being the case here. Something happened, I think. Here we are. Actually, thrust-wise, we're doing really well. We may have to throttle down these boosters, because this is a terrifying speed to be attaining. Yeah, that was an explosion. Let's yeah, let's try this again, shall we? Revert to editor. We shall endeavor to reduce thrust on the biggies, on these thrust limiters. I think a lot less, like 60, will be good. This hopefully means that we can get away with a lower thrust on the main engine, which will conserve fuel. And I mean a lower thrust which will still allow us to steer, but because in the previous go I throttled back the main engine, but this is the only one that's steerable. And then the huge amount of thrust from these side boosters just basically overrode that and made the rocket unsteerable. So the aerodynamic forces from going fast low in the atmosphere didn't help. But what I'm hoping is that by throttling down now, while these are already throttled, I mean you cannot change these on the fly, but in the VAB you can tell them to behave and have lower thrust. What I'm getting at is that I hope I will be able to control the ship with a lower throttled main engine. So you can see it gimbaling and working there in the center. So far things seem to be going fine. We're not going as fast. Usually you want to go as fast as possible, but low in the atmosphere you want to do things slow and gently. Mach 1 is about 330 meters per second, so this is the magic moment where things are just about to go horribly wrong, as they are gonna do again. But we're a bit higher this time. We're pointed in completely the wrong direction, but disregarding that, no, actually this is just horrible whichever way you spin it. So I think we're gonna have to throttle these back even more and add some aerodynamic fins for stability. Well, Bill here is lucky he's in a simulator, because this sure does resemble a flying death missile. Anyway, back to the drawing board, guys. Let's see how we can fix this. Now I only want to do small fixes, because I'm convinced now that the meat of the ship is actually fine, because it was going up really fast, and that's like basically all I want a rocket to do, right? Cool steering fins. We already had struts connecting the boosters to the ship, but let's actually strap the boosters to one another for more stability. That may do something, or it may not. I'll be honest there, I have no idea what that does. I'm lying, I have lots of ideas, but if I was James May and then the other guys would tell me to shut up. What it does, it prevents the torsion from the boost, it prevents the boost torsion from flexing the connectors, which will twist the boosters around the ship, which will unsymmetrize, is that a word? It now is, the thrust vectors, which will then cause the rocket to crash. There. I only made half of that up. Right, we'll do things really slow and steady now. Remember, the point of this mission is to fly to the moon, which is very, very close, and fly around at the moon, which is comparatively easy, but just takes lots of delta V. But hidden in this aeroshell, there's a nuclear reactor with an engine on it. Actually, another thing after adding life support is to add some solar panels, so Bill will actually have electricity. And the third thing to add is a radio transmitter, so he will be able to, 1, radio home his science findings, and 2, call for help and say goodbye when things inevitably go horrifically wrong. 4 is adding landing legs, which I've not done. So there's some work to be done onto this vessel after the space launch system ends up working. And ending up working it actually is. We're at 10 kilometers and we are now over Mach 1. So we are supersonic, which would should ease our airflow problems. So now we're feeling free to punch it on the main engine. And what we will soon experience is the joyous hazard of dropping these boosters, and I'm hoping very much that that will work out. See, we're accelerating so much the air is burning. Come on, air, stop burning. We're really high already. Come on, cut it out. They did change the heat model. Maybe that has something to do with things. We are going frighteningly fast straight up. Okay, let's cut the engine. Separate these, a little bit of thrust. See, we're almost in space. See how nicely and how nice and majestic this is all going. We'll ditch the air shell, we don't need that anymore. And we will throttle up and leave all this debris behind. Alright, full thrust towards the horizon. Careful has no SAS module, alright. So this has quite some fuel left in it, and it has quite some acceleration, so let's just call it and say that this actually will take us all the way to orbit. Let's now then, if I hit this decoupler, these panels will smack away and explode the ship. This is why it's called careful. So let's disassemble these by hand. And now jettison it. And now activate the engine. So here we go. We have a nuclear drive. We have a nuclear drive. This then should take us all the way to the moon and fly around on it. We need to add some landing legs here so this thing can also land. Does it have a thrust to weight value of more than 1 on the moon? It probably will, after it has done all the surveying. Full of fuel? Probably not. Now, it may not fill Bill with confidence that I didn't actually calculate any of this, I just kind of guessed. It has 60 kilonewtons. That means it will be able to lift 6 tons on Kerbin. It weighs 3 itself. These weigh a few apiece, and the moon's gravity is about a 1/6. So I'm thinking it will just barely be able to land when like half the fuel is gone. That's good, that's good, that suffices, that makes me happy. So now all we have to do is add some more stuff like life support, struts, solar panels and a radio, and then we're good to go. Yeah, I'm feeling confident about this. Right, let's quit simulating and resume building. I will do that off screen and then just resume from the planning stages. Alright, this is what it looks like now, and here we go, build it. So, that's anticlimactic. It's been added to the VAB build list. Well, I'm very happy about that. It will probably not take that long, actually. I was going to say forever, but it's a small ship. It will take 13 days to build. That actually makes it the first thing on our list. So let's... I suppose we're going to get to launch it. Before even looking at the probe Eeloo Joule sphere of influence changer. Fine with me, actually. We now have to decide which happy Kerbal we're gonna put in this thing. Which is it gonna be? We're gonna roll it out, that's for sure. Gonna roll it out and let's warp to completion. That's 3 whole days. That makes it to 46 days. Well, a mission to the moon will take like a few days, especially with all the orbiting we're gonna be doing. That means we're gonna be about 40 days out when whoever is gonna go returns. So let's launch and let's not bring an engineer. Let's bring a pilot, because we're gonna do some piloting. Let's bring a rookie pilot, Kerbin. I don't think we've seen Gleezy in action yet. Well, we've just seen the launch of the simulated event. I'm not gonna re-show that. Of course, I will cut in the video immediately if something horrendous happens. But assuming nothing horrendous happens, we will meet again in orbit. See you there, hopefully. So we are now coming up on booster separation, which of course is an exciting moment. I will show it to you. So shutting off the engine, dropping the boosters, little bit of throttle. I'm doing it very carefully because I don't have separatrons. That's a clear separation, and well, let's light that up again. We are still somewhat in the atmosphere, so I'm keeping the aeroshell for now. However, that shouldn't last too much longer. Our vertical speed is about half a kilometer per second, more like 0.75 actually. So let's just go ahead and ditch that aeroshell. There it goes. Boom, now it is a straight shot to the horizon and indeed to orbit. This time, of course, we're not in simulation. This is all for real, if only that was actually true. Cool, here we go. Gleesy Kerbin going into orbit. 1600 meters per second and counting. We have a bit of fuel left. G's approaching 3. That's, well, gentle caress by the forces of nature. Well, not nature, by the physics of nature in Kerbal-made objects. That got away from me. 2100 meters per second stopping. Let's see, we have Apoapsis there. Where is the moon? Did we lose it? We did not lose it. Apoapsis at 263,000 meters. Let's warp there, because there's nothing else to do. 263, 23, 4, 5. This game is just numbers, actually. Cool. Alright. Punch it once more. This chemical stage is actually performing a lot better than I anticipated. I actually thought I would have to finish establishing orbit with the nuclear engine, which I actually don't. So that's good. We are... Actually, this is just perfectly putting me in orbit. Our orbit is now 146 by 425, which is a pretty good starting point. It does mean we have littered, but, well, let's not worry about that. Let's carefully jettison this thing so as not to explode our fuel tank. Zero out the throttle, separate the junk, activate the engine, and there we go. Nuclear fire on the spent stage. Of course, I didn't bring a gyroscope. I'll probably regret that upon landing. Let's try and deploy the landing legs. They work. This is a nice wide base, should work out fine. Of course, we will be landing on a body that allows jetpack access through the egress and entry hatch. This is good. Let's re-stow these landing legs. We've got solar panels for electricity. We have fuel flow from the bottom tanks. We have a little bit left here. We have this is a spare bit for jettisoning everything, and then we can just go home on this 90. Let's call it a reserve tank. So far, so good. Let's try a maneuver node. Let's just be lazy and go for it there. Let's properly set the moon as a target. Oh dear, been going about this all wrong. Cool, here we go. A lunar encounter of the nuclear kind. So what do you say? Just establish orbit and then worry about the the exact locations we're gonna have to visit. I think that's what we're gonna do. Alright, we have a 4-minute burn time. Actually, we can calculate our 4 minutes is 240 seconds. That's 800 meters per second, assuming a linear acceleration. That is about just under 4 meters per second squared, which should be enough to land us on the moon. Especially because it's gonna get more as the fuel runs out. So, happy times. Now let's time warp to that lunar insertion burn point, where we can then start our glorious mission. Alright, here we are, firing the nuke, and as we've seen, that will take 4.5 minutes, and I will stop the video for that amount of time. See you around the moon, probably. Alright, here we go. Sort of. 50 seconds to moon encounter. I selected out this contract. An EVA report, a crew report in spaceflight below the meters. These are both below. Now I want to have these closed. Come on, keep these contracts closed. This is come on, open this one. This thing is just frustrating. We have site VO22 and we have site 6WWB. Hello moon. Let's focus on that and try and find out where these zones are. Alright. Alright, these are all very close together, so we basically just have to go and land there. Our orbit as it is now is completely unsuited for this. Too bad. We need to change this into a polar orbit. And we will do this by first establishing orbit at periapsis, and then changing our inclination full on at the next. And this is of course the least efficient possible way to do this. It would have been much better to change inclination at Kerbin, but hey, we didn't do that. So let's see, how much delta V is this? Only 144. So it's not even that big a penalty. As long as we're patient enough to wait until this moment, we should be fine. Also, I didn't bring any batteries. I wonder if I'm gonna regret that or not. I'm still in time warp. So first we need to warp for 1 hour and 29 minutes to our periapsis on the moon. And then I hope, at least hope is the correct word. I hope I can land near that EVA site and fly around enough to complete the other objectives. I think that's a good way to approach it. First we will try and like sort of hover at the 10-kilometer mark, and then if that doesn't work, we can maybe turn horizontal and escape. And I mean escape because in that scenario we wouldn't actually be able to do a powered landing because our engine isn't strong enough. Now, I did the math sort of very roughly in my head, and I also did the estimation from gut feel, which of course is the most important bit in a Kerbal Space Program. So I should be confident, but I'm not quite sure it's like gonna work out like that. So I'm trying to figure out escape plans. Right, we are now in orbit. If I did my burns correct, yes we are. The next maneuver node is in 3 hours. Let's warp there. And then once we change our inclination by that massive amount of degrees, we can start working towards actually approaching that landing zone. Now, we shouldn't discount the rotation of the moon here because our orbits now last on the order of hours rather than minutes. So the moon will actually rotate a fair amount in between every time we get there. So first things first, let's do an inclination change. That's irrespective of lunar rotation. And then we can go ahead and lower our orbit again, and then we can start to actually try and get it. I think I overshot my maneuver and I now decreased speed so much that we are on a collision course. Well, that was inefficient of me, but it was inefficient on the order of dozens of meters per second, and I think this craft has thousands. So we should still be fine. We should still be fine. Now our inclination is changing. I'm doing this inclination change. I'm doing this so high up because the higher up you do it, the more efficient it is. Because basically, you're going to have what you're doing here is basically canceling out half of your orbital velocity and then adding it back in a different direction. Now, as you can imagine that process is not very efficient at all. You may also remember that, from space physics orbital mechanics class, that the lower you are, and this is by definition, the lower you are, the higher your orbital speed is. This actually, you may have had this in grade school physics, is because you are exchanging gravitational potential energy for actual realized kinetic energy, in other words, speed. What I'm getting at is if you want to change your vector whilst you're going really fast, you're going to require more delta V, more rocket thrust, more rocket performance not actually more thrust, but more impulse to do so. And that of course means using more fuel. So if you've got the time, it is almost always more efficient to spend a bit of fuel raising your orbit really high, doing the inclination change over there, and then using more fuel to lower your orbit back down. This does sound counterintuitive, but it oftentimes works out just that way. I'll try and show you, because this maneuver cost once 60 meters per second to increase our orbit, then 120 to do the inclination change, and then about 60 to 70 again to reduce our orbit. Now this isn't completely accurate because we came in on a pretty fast trajectory, but that's sort of how the cookie crumbles. So that's about 250 meters per second. Now I'll make a mock-up maneuver node of what it would take to change our inclination from here, a much lower altitude. So let's do that. Well, it's not even a full change, but this is already 700, it's like 3 times as much already, and this isn't even a full change back. So that demonstrates what I was on about quite clearly, I think. Alright, we don't have a ship icon. That's a little bit weird. It's probably because the KSP API extension mod I had wasn't updated for version 1.04. It does make it a little bit hard to plot a maneuver node, actually. We did do a few laps of the moon. Where are we? Come on, we are over here. We are headed this way, and we want to go to that EVA point. So let's try and make that happen. Let's try and let's not try and immediately nail it, but let's try and get close to that landing site. I think this way we will get sort of close, I hope. This will happen in 22 minutes, the burn is then a minute, and this is... so we need to point it a little bit more this way, because the moon will rotate that way. Yeah, we're gonna do this burn and try and see how that works out. So that's 22 minutes to warp until the burn. And see, this is actually a fairly large burn again. But this is why I postponed this mission until now, where we have nuclear engines and can make these kinds of inefficient orbit changing burns with at least a little bit of abandon. If we can do this landing and these surveys before reaching half fuel, and half fuel isn't even close to half delta V, because of course the second half of your fuel doesn't have to carry the first half of your fuel around, so it will take your rocket a lot farther. If we can do this first landing on the first half of our fuel, then we should be really confident in getting the second objective done, returning to Kerbin, and that would mean getting almost 1 million credits, if I recall correctly. Also, our acceleration is pretty decent already, so I'm confident that we can actually do a landing with this craft. One thing I didn't account for is that this landing could be in the dark, but I think just by luck we don't have to do that. These things, by the way, if you're not familiar with the new parts, are radiators, and they are supposedly keeping the ship cool. So far it's working because the nuclear reactor hasn't exploded yet. Right, I think I'm gonna have to start time warping a little bit. 40 meters, and well, actually no, because after this burn we get to do time warping to the landing site. And when I said time warping just now, I meant cutting out the video and accelerating time for you that way. This is actually pretty hard to see the ship now, because I actually cannot see the ship. I may have to go and fix that for the next episode. Right, we are at some altitude. Wait, I can put a maneuver node, and this will happen in a minute. So we're about here. So this will happen in a bit more than a minute. So we need to change our course. And this way we are going to go over the landing site. This will happen in a minute. This way we're going to go over the landing site, and this way... oh god. Oh yeah, of course this is lots of meters per second, because this is our deceleration braking burn. yeah, we're gonna do this burn, and that means that we're gonna come down like almost straight to the landing site. And we can start doing that now. This does seem awfully steep for a deceleration burn. But then again, we are coming in all crooked and odd and actually have a target to land at for a change. Let's lock the temperature. We can send that home, actually. Let's do an EVA report as well. No, not an EVA report, a crew report. We're not gonna go outside the ship with the nuclear furnace on. In case you were wondering what a nuclear engine actually is, it is a little bit different than a regular combustion engine, which just burns hydrogen and oxygen to give flames and thrust. A nuclear engine doesn't actually burn a nuclear flame. In reality, it wouldn't look like this. It is a nuclear reactor in here with channels in or around the core, and just ordinary boring hydrogen is pumped through that fissioning core that makes it really hot and shoot out the nozzle, producing thrust. The magic numbers of physics and science say that this thrust is more efficient than the chemical variety. Look that up if you're interested in the details. The interesting bit is that really hot hydrogen steam, which you don't call steam because steam is what water is called, but the really hot hydrogen is actually colorless and translucent, so you wouldn't really see that. But hey, a game that has invisible fire isn't as fun to play as a game that has incredibly visible fire. We are almost here, so let's actually increase our altitude a little bit, slow our rate of descent. And we're now gonna have to land at some point. And let's try and estimate where we are. Yeah, we're almost there. We're just gonna go for a landing now. And if we're not if we won't manage to land in the actual area, then Gleesy can just go ahead and jet back over there. It would be nice if we can land like in that crater. I'm happy with our deceleration. We are entering the area. Is that the good area? We're leaving the area. Holy shit, no, that was a very small area. Alright, thrust to full. The area is about there. Oh man, let's see, that was 300 meters per second we're doing. We were in the area for about, well, not more than a couple of seconds. So that's one hell of a small area. That's like a kilometer or two. Also, we're approaching the ground worryingly fast. Let's thrust up. I'm not worried too much about slowing down now. We are in life-saving mode. Is all the confidence, was it all for nothing? Come on, don't hit the ridge. Don't hit the ridge. There's our shadow. Come on, nuclear drive, do your thing. I have some bad news for the family of Gleesy. Oh my god. We're going so fast. Yeah, that was it. Damn it! That mission appeared to be going so well. Yet now there's explosions. Oh, that was that was really close. Shit. We'll blame instrumentation failure. What's this here? What's happening here? Something weird is happening here. Something strange is happening here. Cannot switch vessels when about to crash. I think the universe is about to explode. Let's go to the space center. 4 minutes 23 seconds ago. No. Hello. What did I do? Can I switch to something? Oh, look, we made it all the way over here. Oh, this is the... We were following a landing strut. Oh, right. So, Gleesy Kerbin, our one of two pilots, died. We didn't get the $1 million payout. Was there an inherent problem? Was the nuclear drive just too weak? Or did we need a better flight plan? Did we need a marker in the map view? do we try again with the same ship? Do we try again with the same ship? Or do we redesign with more nuclear engines and a more expensive ship? Or do we establish a proper orbit over the thing so we can actually land? Slow down a bit higher. Yeah, we're gonna do this again with the same ship, but do it better then. And we'll send a rookie Kerbal along because we can't afford to lose our best pilots on this harebrained nuclear endeavor. Let's build it. And we'll have to try that in the next episode, because I'm hungry and need some food. The next episode will probably fast forward to when this thing is around the moon. So go ahead and watch that if you want to see that mission. Thanks for watching this one. I will be back with more videos. No promises about when or how fast or how many, because life is busy and the night is full of terrors. That had nothing to do with it. I lost that quote. Don't know where that came from. Thanks for watching. See you later. Goodbye.